Okay, I guess let's stop sharing. Good morning. Can you hear me? Check, check, sound. Okay, great. You can hear? Good. Yay, welcome. Welcome to our service from the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence. I'm Stephanie Baird, and I'm this year's president of the congregation, so I'm very happy to be up here. Usually I've been in person, or in Zoom, so it's nice to be in person. If you are new or returning from after a time away, we are very glad to see you. Please feel free to fill out the blue welcome card, which you can put in the offering plate later in the service. There's an online version that you'll find through the link in the chat. We'll put you on our email list so you can receive information about all the things that we do. We strive to be a congregation that welcomes people of all ages, races, religious beliefs, backgrounds, sexual orientations, gender identities, and abilities. We belong to the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we are guided and inspired by its values and principles. Remember that this part of the Connecticut Valley is unceded homeland of the Pecumtuck, Nonotuck, and Western Nipmuc peoples. Our values and principles remind us to acknowledge our responsibility to confront the legacies of dispossession and systemic racism that are part of our history, even as we also affirm the legacies that inspire us. We have drawing materials and other ways to occupy hands in the tables in the back. Restrooms are downstairs and are reached through one of the doors. This door typically, and you can take either the stairs or an elevator. And then if you can just come back up the same way, that would be great. We'll have social hour after the service downstairs, and there is a spiritual discussion group on the topic of transformation at 11:15 today in the parlor. Everyone is welcome. We're here to celebrate, to reflect, and to support one another. It is always good to be together. And now we will begin our service.
Your soul is ever intact. Don't mind the destination. Don't mind the end. Don't mind the good or bad or right and wrong. Grow from the past, but grab hold of the now. Now is always evolving. The end is eternal. It's ever reaching. As there are billions of stars, there are billions of steps. As there are billions of souls, there are billions of ways to grow.
And I now invite you to rise in body or spirit and join us in saying the words, to accompany lighting the chalice, and immediately after that, we'll remain standing and sing our first hymn. We light this chalice as a beacon of hope, a sign of our quest for truth and meaning. We light our chalice as a beacon of love in celebration of the life we share together.
Cal was a caterpillar who didn't want to change. They were happy with their long green body and their many tiny legs. It was nice to be a caterpillar. They could move slowly around, lazily scooching along the ground, up stems and out branches. They loved munching on green leaves all day, every day. It was good to be a caterpillar, to be low to the ground and know where they were going at all times. They knew what to expect each day, and they didn't worry about anything changing in their lives. Raise your hand if you're like Cal and you prefer to avoid change at all costs. But Cal's friends told them that things would not always be like this. Does anybody want to come up and be a caterpillar to warn Cal? Other caterpillars came and told them things are going to change a lot. They told Cal that nothing was going to be the same. Absolutely everything would be different. And Cal hated this idea. They were terrified. They left their friends and went off on their own, hoping to escape the terrible news, hoping to get away so that everything could stay the same. But as you probably are aware, caterpillars can't run away very fast. So they knew what to do. They would hide from the change. They would sneak away so the change couldn't find them. Cal curled up in a ball and buried their head. They made everything really dark so the world couldn't find them. Does anybody have a guess what just happened to Cal? You'll see in the second part of the story.
So now, holding yourselves in suspense, we're going to turn and greet one another. We're going to say hello first to everyone on Zoom. Hello, everyone on Zoom. We are hoping you can hear us this week. And now turn and greet your neighbor.
Hi, Claire.
Hello,
Hi,
everyone
Frank.
on Zoom. It's great to see you here. And as I said, I'm really glad that we figured out what we did wrong with the sound last week. So nothing is perfect ever. We wish it was, but it's not. But it's great to see you this morning. And I don't have my iPad on today, so can't say hello to everybody by name, but it's wonderful to know that you're all here.
I can say hi to Claire and Fran and Mary Beth and Sarah and Sherry and Hannah and Kamala and Georgia and Sally. Turn off your things now.
As Cal sat there, curled in a ball, trying to avoid change, a strange thing happened. Everything started to change. As you may be predicted, they're now a chrysalis. Everything was falling apart. Everything that they were used to, everything that they understood and could predict seemed to disappear as they stayed in their chrysalis. Has anyone had the feeling that everything around them is changing? It felt very scary. Before Cal knew it, they'd turned into a big pile of goop. It just kept happening. Finally, Cal gave up. With a sigh, they relaxed, knowing they couldn't do anything. They grabbed hold of the now. They stopped to take a breath and realized something very cool was actually happening. Slowly and surely, they were growing long, long legs. See if it happens. All right, Cal, where are your long legs? Ooh, cool. And antenna. What could they do with these long, long legs? And what were these antennae for? They wiggled the antenna around and felt so many things that they had never felt before. It was really quite magical. So Cal became curious. Maybe things weren't so bad? Suddenly, they realized they were also growing wings. Very beautiful wings. Cal, once you have your wings on, can you show them to everybody? Jilly and Jazzy made these wings. Wings they had always secretly wanted to fly. Cal was bursting with excitement. They wanted to see how they could use this new body. They wanted to try out all of these new things. They flew and flew, up and down, landing on flowers, enjoying everything they saw. Cal forgot all about their fears of change. All Cal knew was this glorious moment and the next and the next. Being a butterfly was truly magnificent.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Jilly. Oh, yeah. And now I invite you to rise again in body or spirit, and we'll sing I Know This Rose Will Open, and we'll try that one in a round too. It's number 396 in the hymnal, and the words are on the screen. This morning we have lots of reflections about wings unfurling. We're starting with Lyra.
Hello, Hello, my name is Lyra. Thank you all for listening to my speech. Now it's time to begin. I have gone to a camp called Fairy Beach for many years. It has always been a pleasure for me to get to hang out with other UU kids around my age outside of church. I love Fairy Beach is accepting to everyone and always treats people fairly. I also love that there's a beach because it's so fun to swim in and look at. I love that Fairy Beach has wonderful food each and every day and wonderful activities like scavenger hunts and different games. Overall, Fairy Beach has been my favorite camp to go to. Each and every year I've gone to Fairy Beach. It has been a delight, and I hope other people get to experience what I did. Thank you very much.
That's a tough act to follow. My name is Ivan Crew, and my wife Hope and I have been attending services for about 2 years now, and our family signed the book in late 2023. If you know us at all, you may know us as the family that drives here from Great Barrington, which was a particularly beautiful drive today through the ice on all of the trees. And before I begin, I also want to thank my son Sage, who helped me to rewrite and edit this in a way that would help it to make sense for everybody of all ages. So I was raised by Brooklyn Jewish parents who passed down a drive for personal success and a healthy dose of nervous anxiety. And I grew up on Staten Island. For non-New Yorkers, this means things like working class and very traditional family values and a place where boys are expected to be tough. At 17, I set off for college with plans to become a lawyer. As a challenging freshman year ended, a friend suggested that I spend the summer working at a summer camp that she knew, helping New York City kids who have emotional and behavioral difficulties. I don't remember why she suggested it. I don't know why I went. It was a daunting idea. The camp in upstate New York was staffed by a bunch of other college kids and one social worker on a simple stated mission to give these children a typical summer camp experience. And helping these kids was really hard work. For almost no pay and no time off, we gave every ounce of our energy, our creativity, our patience, our care to the cause. And we counselors fell in love with these sometimes struggling yet always precious children. And in the process, we honestly all fell in love with one another. I became close friends with so many different people. There were men who strummed folk songs, and if you can believe it, women with hairy legs. In all seriousness, I made friends with people who looked different from me, thought different from me, loved differently than me. I made friends with folks from different backgrounds, different countries. I made my first Palestinian friend whose stories began a long journey for me of understanding hard truths about Israel. That's a transformation story for another day. Everyone at camp was permitted to be themselves. Everyone was treasured, together hearing the call of these children. That summer at camp set me on a personal path of trying to be more comfortable with who I am and finding friends who are doing the same, a path of progressive political views, go Green Rainbow Party. Unfortunately for my son, it set me on a path of loving Cat Stevens and Joni Mitchell and the Indigo Girls. And it set me on a path of a psychologist working with kids in the legal system. But more than anything else, camp showed me how my unique light could blend with other unique lights to make great light. For me, camp really changed everything.
Hello, I am Degaz O'Day, and I'm a member of the youth group here at USNF. It's often said that hindsight is 20/20. I don't know if I believe that because even my normal sight isn't 20/20. There are some things, though, that I definitely have a better perspective on now than when they were happening. For one, Dungeons and Dragons. When I started playing D&D, I wasn't very good. If you don't play Dungeons and Dragons, this might sound reasonable, but Dungeons and Dragons isn't a game that you win or lose. The goal might vary slightly between groups of players, but typically, the goal is to collaboratively tell a story. You work together to build interesting character dynamics and find ways to slot your backstory into the present. You follow the map of Plot Mountain and create these awesome, often cathartic character arcs. It's incredibly satisfying and fun if you do it right. And when I started, I did not do it right. I saw my character as little more than a fantastical version of me. I couldn't bear having any low stats because I felt it reflected badly on me. I wanted my character to be friends with two other characters because the players were my friends, but I couldn't come up with an explanation for why the characters were friends. I constantly felt like I had to make the correct decisions that would keep me, that is my character, from getting hurt and get the party as much money or cool magical items as possible. This obviously did not make for a great story. But anyway, time went on, as it tends to, and I kept playing. Joined a long-term campaign at Lilly Library that got derailed by COVID, played a few one-shots, finally learned how to use weapons in combat after a few embarrassing months of very poorly pretending to know how. I got a new school, I made some new friends, and after a year of after-school D&D club, my friend Vivian suggested that 5 of us start a summer campaign DM'd by her. She gave us the pitch: a 1950s world similar to Gravity Falls, player characters who are strangers to each other, brought together by the death of a mutual friend, and a Monster of the Week pattern of combat. We all eagerly accepted, and I faced the challenge of this new campaign with a new character. Anthony Harmon, a comic colorist who became a bus driver after he was laid off. He quickly grew into a lot more than his initial concept, in part because Vivian made us share a fun fact about our characters every time we started playing. We fought monsters together, an illusion town, a fog monster, a whole bunch of rats. And our characters grew closer as we did. But soon circumstances grew dire, in the game not out. The antagonist, this being called Elias, made a deal with 2 characters, giving him control over their bodies. When Anthony found another character, Andrew's body in the forest, without a pulse, Elias offered him a deal. He would bring Andrew back if Anthony allowed Elias to possess him. I had a choice to make. I knew Andrew wasn't dead, only possessed by Elias, but Anthony didn't. Anthony and Andrew had become particularly close over the course of the campaign. Accepting Elias's deal would mean that 3 out of the 4 players would have their characters out of their control. By the standards I'd had when I started playing, it was a bad decision, for me and for the party as a whole. But it was what Anthony would do. So, reluctantly, I accepted Elias's offer. Things only got worse from there, and the campaign's ending was ultimately not happy. But later, as I was thinking on it, I realized, I've grown a lot as a person since I first started playing, both in D&D and outside of D&D. I would never have accepted Elias's offer back when I started in 6th grade. Anthony wouldn't have even been close enough with Andrew to justify that choice. And I think that's how a lot of growth goes. It's never something you see while it's happening. There's not a moment of a chrysalis forming or breaking. It's only after months or years go by that you look back and you realize it's all different. Thank you.
Now it's time for our social justice minute. As As many of you know, transgender and gender expansive people, including and especially young people, are under attack and being criminalized in many US states right now. They actually fit the criteria to be designated as internally displaced people by the UN. There's a growing list of people waiting for support to get to safety. In response to this need, a frontline trans-led network has formed to support relocation, as well as to help provide safety for people who are staying in place. We're lucky to live in a state that is safe and affirming to trans and non-binary people, and we expect to see more and more people moving here to escape the anti-trans legislation. Locally, we're working to build a pool of welcome volunteers and short-term hosts to help new arrivals, particularly those who are low income. This network is a broad collaboration with partnership from local faith groups such as USNF, queer and trans individuals, families with trans kids, and allies. You can support these efforts by donating to our Trans Relocation Support Fund, and the funds will go directly to people who are moving here to help with groceries, housing, forms and applications, and all kinds of other costs. We're currently sharing the plate with this fund as well as 4 other organizations, and you can donate directly on our donate page at the UU Northampton website. The Trans Relocation Support Group is hosting a poetry reading next Saturday, March 30th at 6, where you'll get to hear from local poets, and hopefully we'll raise some money. It's a kickoff to the Trans Day of Visibility, which is March 31st. And if you're interested in helping out, either as a volunteer or a short-term host, you can learn more also on March 30th at 2:30 in the parlor. There's an email address on the back of the order of meeting if you want to reach out to learn more.
As Jessica said, we share our weekly offering contributions with organizations outside the community as well as within, as well as to support our own work. We split it 50-50 every week. And your generosity, our generosity, makes everything that we do possible. So our morning offering will now be given and very gratefully received. During the interlude after the meditation, the ushers are so good at collecting things that now we're going to ask them to pass things out They will be giving you a little colored stick. They're called wiki sticks. And you can just hold them and keep them warm for a little while. Our meditation comes from Octavia Butler. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. Let's take some time together in silence.
Many of us respond to change with fear or see it as a crisis. Often, this is because we aren't clear or committed about our dream destination. So instead of moving towards anything in particular, we are in nonstop reaction. Change happens. Change is definitely going to happen, no matter what we plan or expect or hope for or set in place. How we change, says Adrienne Marie Brown, is not about pure adaptation. Rather, it's the combination of adaptation with our intentions. Adaptation is an orientation and movement towards life and longing, one of changing while staying in touch with our deeper purpose.
And now I invite you once again to rise in body or spirit, and we'll sing hymn number 118, This Little Light of Mine. That was awesome. All right. Good morning. My name is Laura Schroeder, and I'm a member of the worship committee, and this is my transformation story. So during my childhood, my father had a home office. On the weekends, my dad would sit at his desk and pay bills and do paperwork and listen to music. Sometimes I would go into his office and sit on the corner of his desk. Incidentally, the same corner both my girls would occupy a few decades later. He would do his work, and I would keep myself occupied with the items on his desk. In his office, he had a bookshelf. It was a bookshelf he had made himself. There were all kinds of interesting items on this bookshelf. Textbooks from his college days, cassettes of music, paperback books, pencil sharpener, just the minutia of everyday life. I, however, was well aware that things on his bookshelf were not to be touched without permission, boundaries. But there was one book in which I always felt drawn. It had a dark blue paperback cover with a stark white graphic of a globe on the front. I can still see it in my mind. One day, when no one was around, I just couldn't stand it anymore. I was overcome with curiosity, and I grabbed the book off the shelf. I hustled upstairs to my room before anyone could see me. I grabbed my flashlight and scurried into my closet. I closed the doors and started reading. What I read was wondrous and completely shifted the way I looked at the world around me. And what book had I secreted up to my room? It was a book about Alfred Wegener's theory of continental drift.
As I sat there at the bottom of my closet, amongst my shoes, reading in the dark about the evidence that proved the movement of the continents, I was transformed, an eye-opening experience. The fundamental expansion of my understanding of the natural world that day fed the curiosity of a young scientist, and the theory of continental drift was my gateway into a life that is seen through a scientific lens. Thank you.
My name is Jasmine Johnson. I started swimming when I was 6 or 7, and now I feel comfortable in the water. I used to have to wear floaty arms when I went swimming because I didn't know how to swim. I was scared I would drown. Once, I had to swim in the deep end at Kathy's house. We had to swim back and forth in her pool. I finished the test and I was finally able to go jump off the diving board in the deep end. I felt happy because I could jump off a high height and do cannonballs. Before that, I could only make small splashes when I did a little jump in the water. I got better at swimming and now I can swim very far under the water. Kathy's pool is 9 feet deep, and now I can jump all the way to the bottom and push off the bottom to go up really fast to catch air. I feel really confident. I learned a lot of different techniques like butterfly and backstroke. I feel happy. I like it when I swim.
Good morning. I'm Jan Nedler. I'm one of the longer-term members of this congregation. Whoops, there's supposed to be a slide up there, but there isn't. Anyway, when I wrote these remarks, I had no idea there was going to be a story about a caterpillar because my story involves a very different caterpillar than we saw earlier. And my caterpillar and the other caterpillar do not think alike at all. And I was thinking this morning about Francis David. For some of you who know a little bit about the history of Unitarianism, Francis David was a 17th century theologian and is probably the father of Unitarianism, certainly in Transylvania. And sometimes he's attributed to this quote that says, you don't have to think alike to love alike. But that really has nothing to do with what I'm going to be talking about. So you could just ignore that part. Okay? And really, I don't know how to apply that to caterpillars anyway. Anyway, is my slide up? Oh, there she is. So many of you are familiar with the story of Alice's adventures in Wonderland. Raise your hand if you've heard of that. Okay, good. Alice runs into this caterpillar, and they sit and stare at each other for a long time. And finally, the caterpillar says to Alice, he says, "Who are you?" Well, that's a fairly simple question, but it's deeply profound in many ways. Are we hiding anything about ourselves? Are we being completely honest about who we are? Who are you? So Alice, she had been changing sizes quite a bit and was very confused, and she replied very politely, "For I can't understand it myself to begin with, and being so many different sizes in a day is very confusing." And the caterpillar just said, "It isn't." And then Alice comes back and says, "Well, perhaps you haven't found it so yet, but when you have to turn into a chrysalis, and someday you will, you know that, And then after that into a butterfly, I should think you'll feel quite queer, won't you? And the caterpillar replies, not a bit. So when I was born, and for a long time after that, I looked and acted like a boy. But deep inside, I felt like there was a girl inside of me. But I kept that hidden for a very long time. So it's different now, but the images when I grew up of people who were like me, it was either a joke or you were despised. And I didn't want to be laughed at, and I didn't want to be hated. And so I hid the real me for a long, long time. So who am I? Well, I wanted to fit in, and so I hid it. But after many years, I decided it was more important to be who I am and take the chance that I wouldn't be laughed at nor hated. When I first went through that change, some people would ask me, this must have been so hard to do, but my response was, no, it's much easier to be who you are than to hide who you are. And if they said it must have been strange to go through this transformation, I would have quoted the caterpillar, not a bit. So I don't think people are laughing at me, and I do feel loved. So who am I? This is who I am. Thank you.
Adrienne Marie Brown says that our responses to change aren't about just adapting. Rather, our response is about combining adapting with our intention. Adaptation, she says, is an orientation and movement towards life and longing. One of changing while also staying in touch with our deeper purpose. Changing while staying true to who we are. So you should have in your hand that little colored wiki stick that the ushers passed out. And as Ellen plays for us, we invite you to play in your mind with those words. Movement towards life and longing, changing while staying in touch with your deeper purpose. And I invite you to imagine that you're putting a wish or a hope, or even just something that makes you happy, like swimming, the idea of that, into that little colored piece, that little colored stick. And wait. Warm it with your hands and put that thought into that little stick. And then when you're ready, you can bring it forward and we'll use them to make buds for our tree, or our trees. Let's begin. our beautiful trees. May every hope and every dream represented here come true. May our fears burn away, and may every soul unfurl its wings. And may spring come in weather as well as calendar. I invite you to rise in that spirit, embody your spirit, and join in singing hymn number 1068, Rising Green. Each new hour holds new chances for new beginnings. Do not be wedded forever to fear, yoked eternally to brutishness. The horizon leans forward, offering you space to place new steps of change. So may it be, and go in peace. I am open and I am willing for to be hopeless, which seems so strange.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. And we are going to have a bit of a conversation after the service. If you just stay for a moment, I'll be opening up breakout rooms to have a bit of conversation. And you're welcome to stay as long as you'd like to discuss the service or any other topic that interests you.
The recording has stopped.